Hello, dear students. I have a couple announcements that I want to share with you before I take you on a quick little field trip to a place that I went earlier. It's nothing too crazy, but I have a little, some practical things and then maybe some more heart things to share. It's not nearly as long as the video yesterday, but so I want to point out a couple things to you guys. First, about the class wall. So I've got the video and some general announcements that I put there. I'm also going to work on compiling those into a topic of general announcements, so that's a little more user-friendly for you. I've been able to get some feedback for you guys about what that looks like from a student's perspective, and so that's really been helpful. Also, remember you can contact me in the chat if it gets glitchy, kind of like it did today, which would actually be yesterday for you guys watching the video. Then you can always email me. I have that open during my office hours as well. Also, I just want to tell you all this actually in a video where you see my face sort of in the corner. All assignments are going to be due by 11:30 p.m. So I was just going to do that from the beginning, and I thought I would communicate that with you because I realized that some teachers are having different times that things are due. So just know for my class, it will always be 11:30 p.m. because I know you need all day to kind of work things with your siblings and parents and other classes. If you end up, for whatever reason, you're absent, you're sick, you didn't get it in, LMS won't let you turn the assignment in, but I will. So you can just email that assignment to me. And if you have tech issues, you can email me the assignment. I don't want everybody flooding my email all the time. If you can submit it on the actual website, but don't feel like you don't have a way to turn in an assignment. And again, you can always ask me if you're having a hard time uploading. We're all learning different things. So I've even asked you all some questions. With the video and attendance, so we're still going to have the daily video and the attendance question. What I'm going to do is I'm going to post it in its own topic. So I'm going to create a topic, and the reason I'm going to do that is it will actually show up on your calendar. So in your checklist of things to do on your calendar, it'll be there. And I know that'll probably ease a lot of stress for you guys so that everything is in a similar spot. I also just want to reassure you guys, I know I sent you home with, several different books and things. That's more of like my ideal of like, that's what we're supposed to do. But the big thing that I'm focusing on is, academically, is that we read and write. But I know that there's priorities even more than academics. And so I want to, as much as I can, give you the best that I can and the best that you can do during this time. But I'm also looking at this as a more leisurely 9 weeks. So this week is an experiment. Zoom, so some of you all have mentioned that, and I would love to get to see you all in a video. What the school's doing though, and this is for a couple of reasons, technological reasons for you guys, and also just security reasons and things like that, they're only doing big required Zoom meetings for juniors and seniors. But if you want to schedule a meeting with me, and I think even if a group of you all wanted to say, hey, we really want to talk with Ms. Carrier about this book, just let me know. Shoot me an email, and we can maybe work something out. And I'll ask Mr. Bundy and Mrs. Chambers how to do that. Okay. Just to clarify, I'm also going to start posting announcements here, kind of similar to a board in the classroom. But today's work, you've got that Act 1 assignment. What you're doing is, you are looking for a YouTube clip, really short, guys, okay, as long as it's like 3 to 5 minutes, and it can be any production. Find one of a little clip from a production of Our Town, and you're just going to watch it, and then you're going to answer the 3 little questions that I've got. And the reason that I wanted you all to do that is because we can't read it in class together. And while I do want to read some things over video, you probably don't want to watch me read a play. I could be wrong. You may want to watch me try out a bunch of different goofy voices, but I doubt it. So I wanted to give you a way to visualize a little bit, and that's really the goal of that assignment, and I'm just pretty much grading it for completion. Did you do it? Also, I want you to try a listening assignment. I'm going to talk about that on our field trip a little bit. This is something that I had to do in 10th grade, in a speech class. You have, it's due Friday, because I know you've got different schedules, things you're juggling. But what you're going to do, and this is completion too, really short, I want you to take about 8 to 10 minutes, and I want you to either go outside or someplace in your house, and I want you just to sit and be still and quiet. And then I want you to jot down a couple things that you heard. Okay? And I'll explain a little bit more the purpose behind that. So I am going somewhere with it. I'm not just throwing things at you to do. There's a reason for that assignment. So what you'll do is I'll post that in the study skills section, and I'll post it as like a little discussion post, so you can just like type in, you know, a little list or a couple of sentences. Really, really short. Don't overthink it. Just do it, and then I'll explain more later on. Also, you do want to make sure that you're reading. Tomorrow we'll have a quiz over Acts 1 and 2. Those are really just going to be 10 basic questions, open book, and I'm about to go through what those are going to be about pretty much through a little PowerPoint with you guys. And also your reading schedule for your independent novel. Someone had asked, do I have to stick with that reading schedule? Exactly. The answer is that it's more of a guideline than an actual rule. I wanted you to create the schedule so that you could think ahead and that you wouldn't be cramming the book in 2 days before the assignment reading, you know, April 15th, that it was due. Okay, so that's the reason that I did that. So hopefully that helps you all feel a little bit better. Okay, so some things with Our Town. Act 1, we read the majority of this in class, and you all cracked me up. So daily life, that's kind of the name that the stage manager in Act 2 is going to give to Act 1, because it just focuses on those everyday mundane things. Also, the stage manager we talked about sets up everything for the play. So he's responsible or she's responsible for the set, for the character background, for walking you through this life with other people. We've got our 2 families that it centers on. Dr. Gibbs, so he's the one that's delivering the baby. Mrs. Gibbs. George, that's the teenage boy, and then Rebecca, she's the young girl that wanted all the money. And if you were in the first English class, Dalton did a great job with that. Then you have the other family, Mr. Webb, so he's the newspaper guy. Mrs. Webb, his wife, and then Emily's the teenage girl that's really smart, and she knows it, and she and George start to, you know, make a connection as friends. Just pay attention really to people's plans, you know, wanting a vacation to Europe, and can you ever get your husband to go there? What do they want to do when they grow up? You know, Emily is like, I'm one of the smartest people at school. I'm going to go places. And George is really looking at agriculture and his farm from his uncle. So think about what's important to each character. And also just remember that budding friendship and romance between George and Emily, where they are helping each other with math, and they're not getting the answers at all, just little hints. Okay? So that's really all you need to know for Act 1. For Act 2, Love and Marriage, that's what our stage manager calls it. So this is the morning of George and Emily's wedding. We see George visit the Webb home, and of course there's a whole lot of superstition of like, oh, you're not supposed to be in the bride's house, you can't see her, and everybody's nervous. And he visits and talks especially to Mr. Webb about marriage, and that's when Mr. Webb shares his own father's advice on marriage to show her who's boss. And then he says he never followed it. He adds that that's actually his own advice, to never ask for advice on personal matters. So you see a little bit of humor, but you also see a little bit of apprehension and nervousness in this scene. Then there's a flashback to when Emily and George are in high school, and George is about to graduate. He's this big, you know, baseball player in high school, and Emily confronts him that, you know, you're not the same person anymore. And that's also when they had this big conversation where they end up admitting that they really like each other. And at first, you know, George gets Emily to promise to write him letters while he's away to agriculture school. And then he's like, I don't want to go to agriculture school. And then he takes her to, the soda fountain. This is a nostalgic, classic place to go hang out during this time, and they get their strawberry sodas or phosphates. It's basically the same thing. Similar to a milkshake, but kind of different. Think of maybe like a root beer float. Now, in that moment, he has no change. It's one of those moments where a guy asks a girl out and he has no money. And so he looks at the stage manager, brings him in, and he's like, hey, can I go? I got to go get some money to pay, so and so. And that provides a transition to their wedding day where, again, there's this big nostalgia, but there's also some fears that are highlighted during this moment. So Mrs. Webb presents those fears of a mother's doubts for her daughter. George looks at his mom and says, "Mom, I don't want to grow old. Why is everybody pushing me?" And she's like, "You're the one that wanted to get married." And so there's this irony, right, of like they're wanting to get married, but then they also feel rushed into it. Emily even looks at her dad and says, "I don't want to get married." And her dad's like, "Oh, no, you're fine. He's a good guy. You're just nervous." And then they have their wedding, and it seems to go really fast. Because if you look at the stage directions, it's like ring, pronounce man and wife, we're done. Okay. And I think that there's a reason for that, in that we're going through the motions. People are living life, and sometimes we don't realize how quickly it happens. And then I want you to pay close attention at the end of Act 2 to the stage manager's comments and to Mrs. Soames' comments, where she talks about, how marriage makes everybody so happy, and happiness is supposed to be the main thing in life. So those are really the things that I wanted you to glean from the first two acts of Our Town. Again, this is not a nitpicky, in-depth reading. This is a more leisurely reading. Hit those quick highlights that I just mentioned, and then I am going to be asking you some questions like the simplicity question on our discussion board. Okay, so a slightly different approach than what we've done before. I hope you all have a wonderful day. And then if you have time, go ahead and watch this quick little field trip bit. I want to be able to present you all with things that are beautiful each day and focus on that. So there's like a little optional semi-devotional moment here at the end. If you're extremely pressed for time, go ahead and do your math. I understand.